everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to give a few minutes for people to trickle in and then we'll start the presentation. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erin McDonald, Marketing Manager here at UBM Fashion. I'd like to welcome you today to the New York Women's and Children's 101 webinar. Today we'll be covering everything you need to know before attending New York Women's and Children's this February, including some inside scoop and how to successfully prepare for this marketplace. Before we start the presentation, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. To hear the presentation, please make sure your computer volume is turned all the way up. If you are having any issues, make sure you check all your system settings. You will be placed on mute for the duration of the call. All questions will be addressed via the Q&A log at the end of the presentation. I wanted to quickly speak to our new 2018 market calendar for New York, Las Vegas, and Japan. UBM has taken some steps to reimagine all marketplaces for 2018 to help grow your business more effectively and efficiently. I wanted to note two big changes, June and July specifically. We are introducing an additional pre-collections event in June and also launching the first ever dual gender fashion trade show in New York in July. You will receive this presentation after the call to make all your notes. And now I would like to introduce you to our speaker today. We have Mercedes Gonzalez, founder and director of Global Purchasing Companies. Mercedes is praised for sharing her tricks of the trade with over 20 years of experience in the apparel industry, traveling to countless countries for trade shows. In addition, we are also joined by Celeste Bohm, VP of Retail Engagement at UBM Fashion. Celeste will be here to address any questions you may have. I would like to now hand it over to Mercedes to lead the presentation today.
Welcome, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. I have had the opportunity to visit these trade shows for many, many years and seen them grow and expand and evolve as the market has had to change too. We're going to be talking about quite a few shows that are all housed in one complex in New York City: the Coterie Show, the Stitch at Coterie, Soul Commerce, Fame, Moda, and Children's Club. And we're going to take you through this virtual tour today and talk about all the different products and categories and price points that you might find. But it's also, and I really want to stress this, the importance of actually visiting all the shows. You may not be a strong footwear company, or maybe you don't carry children's, or maybe even extended sizes, but it's so important when you have the opportunity to see what all the markets are doing to take advantage of that, because that really educates us on trends, what's happening in the market, the networking that we'll do, and more importantly, it'll give you a broad base so that you do become this credible expert to your clients and consumers in the store. So why exactly come to New York? It is a really valuable resource. It's all under one roof. It's very convenient. There are lovely things, and I'm a native New Yorker, so I'm going to be very jaded about this. New York is New York. Even just the window shopping and looking at other retailers while you're here is so important. But you also get to, at the show, you'll also get to navigate through the different neighborhoods too, understanding what's working in the industry, picking up ideas. You know, as a rule, I always like to see when a booth really catches my eye, because in that sea of all of these products and brands, if something really stands out to me, was it a visual? Was it a display? Was it the way that they merchandise something? I also take away those trends and adapt them to my own store, whether it be an in-store display or even a window display. But it is also a very important place to network and to make partnerships with your brands, with other retailers, with internationals, retailers that you'll find that you might meet. And all of this kind of industry know-how really comes from visiting these trade shows. So it is one location at the Javits Center, and it is multiple floors. So we're going to give you a tour through like level 1, where the Children's Club is, Moda Stitch, at Coterie, Soul Commerce, and Fame. When you first walk in, that's called level 2, and that's going to be the registration area. And there's also registration in level 3, which is part of Coterie. And then on level 4, which is all the way on the top, will be where the evening is. And again, even if this is not a product category that you're used to carrying in, it is so important because you'll find little cocktail dresses, you'll find little date dress, you'll find something to wear to a wedding. So everybody has these kind of social occasion moments in their lives. And as a lifestyle brand, it's important to be able to fill all these kind of important needs of the consumer. And I just want to stress one more thing about like the evening wear. Don't just think of it as really formal beaded gowns. There's such a nice variety of merchandise there that it really is worth going all the way to the top. So let's talk about the shows individually. So Coterie you will find on level 3 and 4. It is merchandised by neighborhoods, and the different neighborhoods, like tomorrow, you're going to find a lot of advanced contemporary lines, a lot of emerging designers. You'll find a lot of international brands. I remember that I just absolutely fell in love with some of the Singapore designers that I have found there. And the lovely thing is when you start taking chances on emerging brands and you start taking chances on an international brand, you could be rest assured that nobody's going to Google it and find it cheaper on Amazon with free shipping the next day. So this is what really gives us the competitive advantage of being able to find these new guys. Edit has always been a really one of my favorite areas of the show. It's moved up. It's now part of the Coterie. It's one of the neighborhoods. But here you'll find some really luxury brands, some contemporary ones. You'll find some accessories mixed in. But this really has a kind of European flavor to it. So again, even if you're a younger store, it's so important to come and see everything that's going on as far as trend and style. Active at Coterie, we all know that this is really growing. This is one product category that's really just out of control. Even if you don't have a lot of it, it is important to have some of it just to really meet that lifestyle kind of feeling of the store and really round it out. You'll find some domestic brands, which it's really been a trend too, looking for American made. And of course, you'll find a lot of international brands, which, I always say like going to Coterie or in all of the neighborhoods and all of the other shows is like really having a passport to the world because there's so many great brands. You're going to find some Canadian brands, some European brands, some Latin American brands are going to be there too. So especially in the edit, I think that you'll find some really beautiful different things that will really separate you from the masses. And of course, the evening wear is going to be at Coterie on the top floor. There are some brands that are really influencing brands like Max Mara Weekend. And again, like Linda Farrow, I would probably try to call ahead and make appointments with them because I'm sure that their date book is completely full. So this is, and I'm very excited about this. And, you know, it's funny because I've been going to these trade shows for so many years, and I have to admit I am a bag hoarder, and I have them all the way back from like 1998. And this one I'm really looking forward to. So Coterie has a new sponsored bag where now you'll be able to go to some of the vendors that are at the show and pick up a patch. And you can customize your own very individual bag as you travel through the different neighborhoods in the different parts of the show. And one area I feel that's very important and has been growing at tremendous speeds for everybody is this luxury beauty area. You're going to find a lot of new people. You're going to find some really interesting brands that, again, you're not going to find in Sephora or some of the more commercial places, and this is what really makes it different. But they've been curated by one of the top, what would we call him? I want to say a stylist, but I don't think that really applies to the cosmetic and skincare, but he is that kind of a person. So experts really making this a really well-edited show and something that you should dabble on if you haven't tried it yet. Stitch at Coterie is at level 1. And again, this is focused on ready-to-wear designers. It's merchandise so that you can see all the different contemporary and the sportswear and the lifestyle brands. You will find some more sporty, younger looks here too. And, you know, it's kind of funny because we try to define and we try to categorize brands and vendors by these labels. And some of them are just really crossover. You know, I remember a time when people used to say that you had to dress age appropriate. It doesn't apply anymore because you see some really fabulous 80 and 70-year-olds that look amazing in a pair of cutoff shorts. It's more about the style and the spirit of the person. So really just putting so many labels and really trying to be restrictive doesn't work. And again, I can't stress it enough, the important it is to see everything that's going on. And, you know, the show is comfortable enough in size where you might take the first day to walk the show, to get a feeling, to look for these new brands, the new vendors that you're looking for, to fill in some new niche categories, and maybe then take the second day to write your orders. So footwear at Coterie, again, very important. If you're not a full-on footwear store, it is an add-on accessory. You might just want to buy like the sandal of the season. You might just want to buy like the little boot of the season or a rain boot, so appropriate today in New York City. So even if you have them in your accessories department as one of the categories, that's fine too. But a real rounded store should have some kind of footwear mixed in with the products. Soul Commerce is more younger. If you're doing some of the fast fashion or some of the K brands, this is kind of where it merchandises together and does really well. Even though Trenton, I don't consider them a young mark. I think that they're very European and very stylish. And again, even if you don't carry sneakers, this is one of those like fashion forward ones that might be really interesting to, you know, start with. And I just want to tell you also, when you're adding new categories, new product categories to your mix, it's also important to have a few different price points. So don't just go with like, I'm going to try something new and let's just go with the best. You have to also think about like an entry price point, a middle price point, and a top price point so that you can really judge if a new department or a new area in your store is going to do well. And that's called good, better, best merchandising. So just keep that in mind too, because I keep saying just add one, but it's not really about one. It's about having enough variety to make a statement. Same, again, you have to come here. This is where we find a lot of margin builders. I know that it says junior and young contemporary, but again, it's more of an attitude than it is a fit that we're talking about. You're going to see some of my favorite brands there, like Lush. Lush has just grown so much. And here you could actually, with some of these brands, you're going to find a lot of at-once merchandise. So if you still need to fill in for Easter or maybe spring break, this is a great place to find some immediate goods besides buying your fall. And it's also the area where you're going to find fashion to go, which is really young, pretty, inexpensive margin builder accessories that you can buy for cash and take home. So again, when we're talking about an ROI, return on investment on your trip to New York and to buy, you have to have enough budget to actually make it worth the trip. You can't spend, $2,000 on a trip and just buy $2,000 worth of goods. So understanding the budget, planning, having some of these margin builders. And again, one of the advices that we like to give our clients is that if we find like a very trendy product from one of these people and we know that our customer will pay more, but we don't want them to compare apples to apples, one of the things that we encourage is to do some private label. And here you'll find a lot of the brands. Now, they're not going to switch out a label to put your store brand in for 6 pieces, but it's easy enough to buy the labels and sew them in yourself. And again, when you don't have that comparison of apples to apple and you have a quote-unquote exclusive, this is what separates you from the mass and from the retailers and from some of the online guys too. So Moda, again, you're going to find a big variety of product. I feel like this is a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more mature. There's a lot of extended sizes, and by that I mean you'll find size 14, 16, maybe all the way up to a 3X, depending on the brand. But this is the area where you want to find that kind of a product. There's a lot of also related separates that merchandise well, and we're finding that people are really starting to look for separates that make a statement. So this is definitely a great area to find that kind of product. Children's Club. So I just want to make a note that this is replacing the March show. So if you do have a children's area, and again, a lot of boutiques, they're very specific, either they're children or they're women. But think about all the opportunities, seasonally that you might be missing. Mother's Day, they love that mommy and me look. Father's Day, they like that daddy and son look, dad and son look. For holiday pictures, the whole family. So trying to think of these different moments, even though you don't carry children year-round, might be a nice opportunity too. And I love that a lot of these brands, there's so many like small niche brands that you'll find at the show, some very classic brands, some well-known established brands. So you'll have that nice variety of product, price point, and opportunity to really have some nice margin. So there is a lot of planning that has to go, and there's a lot of stuff going on at the show. I just want to mention, keep in mind that the Children's Club is going to be open on Sunday, but the rest of the shows open up on Monday. So if you wanted to come, if you're just going to quarter into Fame and to the footwear show, and you wanted to register on Sunday, that's totally fine, but it won't be open for shopping, just the children's area. So the show basically runs from 9 a.m. to 6, except for Sunday in the Children's Club. And then on Wednesday, it ends at 4 o'clock. So it always ends a little earlier on the last day. Registration hours are listed. And again, it's so important to pre-register because time is money. And especially when you're in New York City, and especially when there's so much to take in and so much to do. So I would definitely register online as soon as possible so that it's not an issue when you get to the show. There are going to be complimentary shuttles that will be running from Penn Station. So if you're commuting from the tri-state area and end up in Penn Station, there will be a shuttle to take you back and forth. The times are all listed there. And again, this presentation is going to be available for download. So if you want to print it, some of the important things, and keep with you or make notes, you'll be able to do that later too. And I guess this is a good time for me to apologize. I know I talk really fast, and there's a lot to take in, but I also get so excited about all the things that you need to do and all the things that you should be doing and all the possibilities that are out there. And I can't stress enough, I should take just a moment, if you don't mind, to talk about retail, because I know that there's like doomsday, and I think that there's a quote that I keep reading everywhere that there's retail Armageddon going on. It is not happening at our level. There are corrections, market corrections that should have taken place a long time ago with the department stores, with some of the chains that they were just old and dusty and doing things the same way. But us as independents, we don't need a 6-month window in order to buy something that we know is selling. And that's why it's really important when we're planning our budgets to leave some room to fill in. And I'll talk a little bit about allocating your dollars and trying to plan all the way through the seasons and keeping in mind the different events that might be going on too. So there are parking, there are some very close by to the Javits Centers. There are some discounted places too. Taxis, of course, Ubers, all of that kind of stuff is very accessible. The Javits Center is actually, year after year after year, is just getting easier and easier to get to. And you're talking to somebody that, what was it, a couple of years ago, there was this horrific snowstorm in January, and I took an Uber from the Javits, and I live on 23rd Street, so it's literally 20 blocks. It cost $100, but it was the best $100 I've ever spent in my life. So there are some airport transportation. There's flat fees. There's a couple of shuttles that you could also take at Port Authority and at Penn Station. There is the Super Shuttle, and the phone number is listed, but all of these things are available to you if you download the program after we're done. Actually, a few days after. You'll get an email about it. So while you're at the show, there are some help desks. They will help you navigate through the different neighborhoods, the different categories. If you're looking for something very specific, or if you want to go a little bit more prepared, please, absolutely take advantage of this retail concierge service. So in a year, I can average 50 plus trade shows, and in 8 different countries. And I have never in my whole time as a buyer heard of such a service. Well, some of the shows in Europe do it, but they charge a tremendous fee for it. So please do take advantage, especially if you're a new store, especially if it's your first time. You want to be able to have this kind of pre-app and help and engagement before you get to the show too. So there is a email here in the bottom, and at the end, Celeste will remind you a little bit more about it. But it is such a great program that please do take advantage of it. So they'll be serving breakfast from 9 to 10 and lunches from 12 to 1:30. It is complimentary. There are some cafes located on level 4 that you can buy your own products. I mean, your own, what would you call those, nutrients and water. There are a couple of lounges throughout the show. And, you know, again, it is so important to just pace yourself, because I find that after walking like row after row after row, I start to suffer from a phenomenon called buyer's blindness. So what does that mean? That means you just start walking down rows and you're like, oh my God, didn't I already see this? Did I turn left when I should have gone right? Haven't I been here already? And it's just because it's such a sensory overload that you have to kind of like regroup, maybe have a little coffee, maybe have a little snack, sit down, talk with somebody that's sitting there. This is how we do the networking, right? And then go back into the grind. So there are coat checks. They're located throughout the different levels, and they're usually near the registration. So you might, you know, it's always funny because I walk in and I'm always cold, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep my coat on. It'll be faster to get out. And then I regret it. Like by the time you get to the end of the first hall, you're like, oh, geez, I should have left my coat. So just do yourself a favor and be as comfortable as you possibly can so that you could get the work done. So there are some deals. I still believe that they're available. These are outrageous rates, and all of these hotels are really quite phenomenal. So I love the York Hotel. It's such a modern kind of futuristic hotel. And the Hudson Hotel for $100 is just unbelievable. So there are some really nice rates. There is a My Show Planner, which is the digital interactive show planning tool. Again, it tells you what's at the different levels at the Javits Center. It helps you preview all the floor plans. And it is a nice comprehensive listing of all the brands and exhibitors that are going to be at the show. There is Shop the Floor. So I love Shop the Floor after the show. So you might have missed someone, or you misplaced a business card, or all of a sudden you realize, oh, I didn't buy any Easter dresses. This is where you probably go back into and try to kind of scope out what you missed, what you need to review, and you will find that all of the brands, or I would say a high percentage of the brands, do have their line sheets listed there. So again, I have to tell you something. I love mocking people that carry huge suitcases around the trade show. They are catalog and line sheet hoarders. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happens when you go home or to your hotel room and you pop open your suitcase all full of line sheets and catalogs and postcards and all kinds of stuff. And you're going to look at it and start crying because you can't believe that you can't remember anything that you did 10 minutes ago. So this is a really good way of exchanging business cards, checking the trends online, checking the line sheets. And personally, if I didn't write the order at the show and took pictures of it, I will ask the vendors to email me the line sheet. So it's all there and it's all organized on one place without having to drag around 50 pounds of paper. Also much better for the environment. So a couple of things before you go to the show. It is really important to be focused. So if you have a new store, it's very hard to figure out what your best sellers are, but you should really be informed on trends, knowing what's going on. And again, this is the hardest lesson I've ever had to teach a buyer is that you can't buy the things that you like. You have to buy the things that sell. And trust me when I tell you this, ugly sells. You might say, oh my God, in a million years, I'll never wear this, and it's your best seller. It's not about you. It's about what's going to make money in your store. So for those of you that have stores, you have to really take a hard look at what's making money. You might love your sales rep at this one brand. You might absolutely love the brand. All your friends love the brand. But if it's not making money, if it's not giving you a good margin, it's time to drop it. I remember one of my favorite, we did a retail checkup, and this woman was literally bleeding money on a couple of footwear brands. Her margins on it were 10%, and her turnover was twice a year. Meanwhile, some of the other brands she was turning over in 12 weeks, and she was making 57. I'm like, you have to kill these brands. They're just dragging your numbers down. And you know what she said to me? I can't, because everybody in town wants them. My answer to her was, let somebody else in town lose money on them. So we have to separate ourselves, our ego, from what actually works in our store. One way to do that is to have a meeting with your staff. Ask them for recommendations. Ask them for feedback. And it's funny because when I work with a distressed store and I ask the owner what's going on, they blame everything. They blame politics and the environment and economics. And then when I talk to the staff separately, they have a whole different idea of what's going on. So it is important, this communication, to be very clear, especially before you go to the show. And I always feel that if a staff member recommends a brand and I buy it, they make sure that it sells, because nobody wants to be one guy that, made the mistake. So talk to your customers, see what they're reacting to on Instagram. I always love when I'm curious to see if something is working. I'll post it on Instagram, and instantly somebody will say, oh, I love it, or oh gosh, don't get that. People have so many opinions, and in real time you can get that kind of feedback too. So it is important. And again, and I'm talking to the more established retailers now, you can't get stuck on the same brands over and over and over. And I feel like some people stop going to the trade shows because they have 10 brands that they do well with and they're comfortable. I promise you this. The moment that you feel you know what you're doing and you're comfortable, it all changes and you don't see it coming. So it's so important to always add new brands, try new products, try a new product category, and just always really keep evolving. Keep surprising your customers so it's not the same old, same old. You have to plan a budget, which is called an OTB, or open to buy. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And you also want to take a moment to see what events are going on at the show too. Do they have a networking? Is there a cocktail party? Is there some kind of, I've been when they've had coffee or drinks. So also in the back of the book or in the front of the book, I'm not really sure right now, maybe Celeste can tell us at the end, there'll be some events that they're doing that you want to be part of. So this is another question that I get all the time. And again, one of the things I love to mock people on, and I will mock you because it is the industry and we work in fashion. We don't sit behind desks in gray offices selling pencils and paper like they do in the office. We are in fashion. So I have seen so many people come to a trade show dressed like a homeless person on laundry day. And I asked them, what were you thinking? And these are always the people that are oh, I can never get an appointment, or nobody's taking me seriously, or nobody's answering my questions. And I'm because you don't look like you belong, honestly. So when I ask them, why are you dressed like that? And they say, because I want to be comfortable. There is no comfort in fashion. I'm so sorry to tell you this. you have to look professional. So, and again, I don't expect you to be wearing 9-inch heels and fishnets and, oh wait, that it sounds like a different kind of profession. But the point is, you want to look neat and polished. You want to make sure, you know, I always say that, make pretend that you're going on your first date where you want to look appropriate but not too easy. That's it, that you just want to look neat and clean. And again, that those giant wheelie shopping bags, I think they should be completely outlawed. So, and again, I always love when somebody takes a style and really exaggerates it, whether it's a trend, because to me that person is interesting and not just boring. The business cards, again, everybody forgets their business cards. This is your first marketing tool, especially when you're trying to network and talk to the bigger brand. So it is important to have a really nice one. It always cracks me up when we collect business cards at some of our seminars and we get like a dozen of the same one from Vistaprint that was free. You know, the one with the little girl, that one. Please don't get that one. Try something different. Open to buy, your projections, your budgets by category, they all have to be spelled out, because what happens is that you end up loving everything, but you can't afford it, and then we have to cancel orders. And I just want to say that probably canceling orders is one of the greatest sins in our industry. So it is so important to make sure that you, when you commit to an order, that you commit to an order and you're not canceling them. I would take my laptops with me. Of course, one of the things that you want to bring is an extra battery for your phone, because you'll be surprised how quickly you will go through your battery during the day. And during the show, you just want to make sure that you start out early. I know it's New York City. I know that there's a lot of fun things to do. I know there's so many fabulous restaurants. It's very easy to be in a food coma, but it is a big show, and you want to be able to get there early enough so that you can map your day, so you could pace yourself, so that you could see everything that's going on. And a couple of things that I want you to start thinking about, especially for the more established retailers, it's not always about finding the new vendors, but also starting this network of market friends. And I feel like together, we always feel this a nicer community of retailers, and especially when we can share experiences, or we can, you know, some of our clients, what they do with each other is that if they're like in a northern state, they might trade some merchandise with like a southern state instead of marking it down. So there's a lot of like this camaraderie that is important too. And, you know, some people that have been really going to market for a very long time, we share hotel rooms too. So there's a lot of that kind of experiences that you could have at the show too. So it is important to know the lingo, cancel dates, you know, shipping terms, all of that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that in a second. And me personally, the way that I like to buy is when I see something, instead of going back and trying to wrap my head and looking at my phone for the pictures, I just write the order. But I always put hold for confirmation. So that means, I mean, it doesn't mean I have like 6 months to confirm the order. It means I have a week to get back, look at my budget, see if I found something else cheaper, faster, nicer person that sold it to me. And then at the end of the day, I'll subtract, I'll add, I might cancel the order altogether, but I haven't committed to it. And then I send them the confirmation. It is important also, one of the other tricks is the way that I write my order, the sequence, is also the sequence that I take my pictures. But the first picture is always of the brand name and then of all the products. I might even take a picture of the salesperson too, just so that I could say, because you know what happens too sometimes. And this is why it's so important for you to write your own orders, use your own order form, and just really be the buyer, not let anybody sell you stuff, right? Is the paper trail. I can't tell you how many times like the salesperson left, or, you know, I said, you know, she told me her name is Mary, we've never had a Mary. Like, it is so important to have everything documented and signed and just done correctly. And especially, I'll give you, let's see, I'm going to talk about order writing in a second, but it is so important to even have like a start date. And most of the brands, when you ask them like, when can I start getting this, they'll say as ready. As ready, I'm going to translate that for you, means whenever I feel like it. And if we're managing our money and our budget and our credit cards, we need to know what's coming when and how much. So one of the suggestions we like to give is exactly how much to buy. At the beginning of a season, so we're right now at the beginning of a season for fall 2018, I'm going to buy about 45% of my budget. I'm not buying 100%. I'm buying 45 because that way it still gives me time to adapt to a trend that I didn't know about. Like last spring, who knew that yellow was going to sell so well? But because we had money in season, we had exactly 35%, we were able to go back into the early trends and take advantage of them when nobody else had money to do that. And I always like to leave a budget for immediate. So this is where I'm making deals. This is, well, you have it in stock. You know, they're winter coats. You know, if I take them next week, can I have 10%? Can I have 20%? Can I have 50%? So these are all kind of budgeting ideas that I want to give you, but we should even break it up even more by category. So we do it by month. You know, here we have August, September, October, November deliveries. And then think about if you're doing an event, is it back to school? Is it a fall preview that you're doing at the store? Are you doing bring a friend? So you want to think about all of those things. Holidays, are there holidays? You know, in September we have Labor Day. No, we don't have Labor Day. We have September is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So are we planning on having special items for those things? So these are the things that you want to kind of think about. Holidays, events, because you want to stock up a little bit more for those kinds of things. And then you also want to keep in mind the cancel date and how you're bringing over the inventory from one month to another month. So all of this, it's really funny because so many times, and especially in school, they teach us to do our budgets on a 6-month or a quarterly basis. But honestly, your open to buy is a work in progress that you always have to be reacting to monthly. So again, leaving that like 20% extra is great because if you have, you know, 10 consecutive days of below zero weather and you haven't sold a single thing, you don't want to be overstocked for the next month. And because you have that little percentage of leeway, you're going to be okay. So, and if you haven't guessed yet, buying is a full-time job. When we're not buying, we're negotiating, we're planning, we're doing our budgets. It's part of marketing, it's part of merchandising. It really, really is a full-time job. So once we start figuring it all out, then you want to get really sophisticated and start thinking, well, what's my ratio of tops to bottom? In a lot of our clients' cases, we're almost buying 4 tops to every bottom. So that's a percentage. So if I'm going to buy, you know, 36 style jeans, I better have enough tops in order to classify a multiple sale. And that's what you want to also keep in mind too. When we're doing our buying, how are we merchandising? How are we placing? Where is my add-on? Do I now look for an accessory to go back with that jean and t-shirt? Can I get a blazer? So now I have 4 item sales. So we're always thinking about how we're going to upsell, merchandise, and place our product when we're buying. So it sounds more complicated than it really is, but it really, when you start thinking of it that way, it actually becomes quite fun. So I'm going to teach you how to be a professional buyer in 5 minutes. The most important thing is you have to make sure that the collection, that the brand works for you. Just because it's in every magazine, just because every blogger is talking about it, just because a celebrity wore it, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for your store. So we take a look at the collection, you ask, you know, especially with the big books, you want to ask, you might need an appointment to be able to do that. And before you even ask the next question, can you give me an idea of price points? I like to hold it in my hand. I like to look at it. And in my mind, I like to think about what my customer is willing to pay for something. And that's called consumer price resistance. You don't want to just buy things for the sake of pricing, or again, like they would say in school, like you're supposed to do a keystone markup, which means you double the price and add for shipping. That is not the way you're going to survive in business today. You really need to be able to get those margins. You know, we're recommending between a 2.5 and 3, honestly, in a lot of things. So now if you say, well, my customer is only going to pay $20 for this, and now you ask the vendor, can you give me an idea of price point? Goes, yeah, all of our dresses start at 50. So now you're like, oh my gosh, we're really far away. Like, what's going on? So you have 2 choices. Either you ask why, and they might say, well, these are hand-loomed by fairies when the moon is full. And you're like, wow, that's a really good story, but my customer doesn't care. So how are we going to justify this price difference? You could ask for a discount or you could walk away because you have to know what your customer is willing to pay for something. So now we're going to talk into like our budget. What is your cancel date? And again, you have to be very specific and you have to stay in control. A vendor can't tell you, well, we start shipping, our start ship date is September the 1st and it goes through December. That's 4 months. How do you plan your money? How do you plan the styles that you're going to get? You can't. So you have to write your orders. Well, I prefer, my recommendation is by month. What am I getting in September? What am I getting in October? What am I getting in November? And you have to give them a start date. In the September orders, I want you to start shipping me 9/1 and end at, 9/15. And you have to ship it all as one shipment because for you retailers that have had some experience, you will get one box every single day if you don't control that. And it's really up to you. Sometimes the vendors will say, oh, we can't hold it. You can't hold it. I can't buy it. That's how it works. I'm the boss. You're not the boss. And if they do insist that they have to ship you a box every day, well, you know what? I'm not paying all that extra shipping. I will pay shipping for one box. You have to give me free shipping on the rest. So think about negotiating. Think about really staying in control. And think about this. This is a business of nickels and dimes. A nickel here, a dime here, a nickel here, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm making so much money, but I never have any money. You don't have any cash flow because of that. So it's really, really important to stay on top of all of that. What are your terms? Are you factored? This is really just a polite way of asking, how am I paying for the goods? Because most of us, and especially the new stores, you won't have industry credit, which means working through a factoring bank, and you'll be able to establish that down the road. But my most important advice, because remember, we're not placing the orders, we're writing the orders until we can confirm our budgets and go back and really think about all the price points. So we're not giving our credit cards at the show. You are going to ask for an invoice. You will check your invoice to your orders. And when you see that everything is right, the colors are right, the sizes are right, the price is right, then you will send in your credit card order form. It is important to ask where you're shipping from, also known as FOB, freight on board. It's an old shipping term, because you want to make sure, especially with the international guys, that you're not getting shipped from Portugal or from Canada or from Peru, that you're actually getting shipped from the U.S. And if you are getting shipped from those countries, they should be covering the shipping. So it's really important not to get that surprise. I'm sure we've all, I have to admit, it still happens to me once in a while, where I really thought that they said like a New Jersey forwarder, and all of a sudden it's like I'm getting custom papers, in the mail. So do you have at-once goods? That's, if you need them, this is what we're asking for. And like I said, in the fame, I feel like a lot of vendors will have some at-once goods that you can kind of negotiate and also fill in some of the things that you might be missing. What is your size run and how do they come packed? So when they're pre-packed, it's just that. If they come packed 222, usually it's a small, medium, or large, and that's what you're getting. You can't say, well, I want 4 pieces because they're pre-packed and nobody's opening a pack for you. Now, if they say it's open scale, but you have to buy 3, that means that they know that it comes size 2 to 14, and you can pick your sizes, but you have to buy at least 3. And that's how we kind of work it out. And, it's really funny because sometimes you'll say, like, how's the fit or how does it, run in sizes? And they always say true to size. So it's, again, one of like those crazy industry terms that means nothing, true to whose size. So you might say, well, can you compare it to a brand that I know, or are you wearing it? What size are you? And then you kind of make a judgment call. And here's another word of advice. I could always tell a new buyer because they're always trying samples on. And I have a surprise for you. Most of the samples are just that, samples. They're not fitted yet. They're not made in a production factory, which is another more advanced question that you might want to ask. Am I looking at a production sample, or am I looking at a sample from a sample maker? And those fits are never going to be exactly a production fit. So it is really important to kind of ask the vendor how that kind of works. Then what is your opening order? So I actually asked this question to be polite. A lot of new buyers walk into a booth and they ask that as the first question, what is your minimum? And if you start a conversation like that, basically what you're telling them is, I don't know what I'm doing, and please just ignore me or charge me a lot of money for everything. That is not what you want to be able to do. So what is your minimum or what is your opening order is one of the last questions. And I guarantee you this, if you just keep buying to make a minimum, you will buy a loser because you already know what works and doesn't work. And if you're just buying one more thing in order to please the vendor, it always works out that that wasn't a number that was good for you. So please just keep that in mind when you're talking about different categories and different quantities. And again, if the minimum is 500 pieces and you only have, $500 and you only have $100, maybe that wasn't a good brand for you and that's something that you want to be able to work with or a brand that you need to work with. I find that most of the brands are very flexible, especially if you just have a very simple conversation with them and say something like, well, this is what I'm comfortable with. We're very close in the amount that's your minimum, but if you can't work with me, then that's fine. And I find that 99% of the time, the vendor will make the exception and work with you because they know, because of this conversation, that you know what works for you and doesn't work for you. And it is the first time that you're doing business together, and most vendors do want to build a very honest and profitable relationship together. So the last question could really just be a full day class, and that is this the best that you can do? So it's one of those negotiating things. I usually pick the most expensive thing and ask them if they could give me a discount, just to try to see where I can go. Most of the bigger brands are not negotiable, but you might be able to make a deal with them at the end of the season when you go off price. Instead of calling like Marshalls, can you call me? And this kind of negotiation is really important to kind of get used to doing. And I just want to tell you something, that negotiations and discounts and incentives and free shipping and postcards and gift with purchase, nobody's going to offer you any of those things if you don't ask for it. So what's the worst that they can say is no? It's no. So after the show, so it's not over until the fat lady sings, right? Or it's not over until you actually hand in your orders. So it is important to follow up on the ones that we're going to send you emails with the line sheets. It is important to take the time and really just don't try to do every order in one night. Just really spread it out, maybe spread it out by department, by category, review the pictures with your sales team or with your partner, whatever it is, but really try to separate yourself from what you like, what you thought is going to work with, and what the numbers actually tell you. Edit the orders, drop things, whatever it is, and then write your order confirmation and send it into the vendor. Usually what I like to do is I handwrite my orders and I enter them as just a generic number on my POS, because if you spend the time of writing every single style and then you don't get everything, I feel like you do the work twice. So the orders that you don't end up putting in or confirming, I don't throw them away. I actually keep them, because you're going to find that in season, one of the vendors might have dropped style, or they might have canceled the order because it never happened, especially with some of the international guys. So you have to kind of leave some leeway and some backup plans, or just the opposite. You might do really well in one category that you didn't think you were going to do well, like maybe in the beauty area, and now you go back and you have all this variety of merchandise that you could pick from that you've already edited. So the way that I organize the orders that I haven't placed is I do it by cancellation date. Everything that I was going to get in April, everything I was going to get in May, and so forth and so on. So make sure, and this is kind of important, and it sounds kind of silly because once you place an order, you would think that that's all you have to do, right? But it is so important to call and follow up. Sometimes the shipping dates get extended. Sometimes they run out of merchandise. Whatever the case might be, it's the person that's been calling and following up that's going to get their order. So make sure you at least call like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before your order is due to make sure that there's no problem, and if you have any adjusting of your budget that you need to do. So this is now the time for questions.
Thank you so much, Mercedes, for all of your helpful hints and tips and, of course, your insider knowledge. We have had a few questions come through already, so I will speak to those. Mercedes and Celeste are both on the line to answer those questions. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A tool on the presentation page now, and we will try to get to them. The first question that did come through was, is all clothing available in bulk orders only? And is there the opportunity to purchase single items at the show?
Well, by bulk orders, I hope that they're talking about wholesale, correct? If you're talking about buying a container full, there are a lot of manufacturers that are the brands, and I'm sure that you could talk to them about these bulk orders, but this is not a personal show. Nobody's going to sell you one piece. Nobody's going to sell you one of each, style that they have. As a matter of fact, if I was a vendor and you did that, I would think it's kind of shady. Maybe you were like trying to copy my collection, so I probably wouldn't even ship anything to you. So no, it's not a personal shopping show. It's not a show where stylists might go to buy things for their clients. It's definitely a wholesale to retailer trade show.
Thank you. The next question that we do have is from a first-time attendee at our show. Renee mentions, my store is not opening until spring. When I purchase my items, is there a system I should be prepared for? Are some items only by cash credit?
Okay, so my first advice is I wouldn't place any orders until I actually have the lease and I have a schedule for the build out, because I cannot tell you the number of horror stories of people receiving all this merchandise and the store wasn't ready, or the lease fell through, or there was a problem with the loan, or whatever case might be. So at this show, I would make notes on immediates, on what's in stock, what the cancellation dates are, to make sure that it's something that you could still fit in. And I'm assuming it's this spring that the store is opening and not next spring, correct? So I would just take my notes and not place anything. And it is going to be on a credit card basis, not cash, meaning that, and don't take anything COD either. And I don't think that most people do that anyway, because every box has an extra $8 charge. And, 8 times 100 boxes, that's $800 you threw away by doing COD. So it is going to be on credit card terms, meaning that the minute they send you the invoice, that means that the goods are ready to ship. You're going to pay with a credit card, and they're going to ship it out within a couple of days.
All right, the next question is, you never recommend to give credit card information before the invoice?
Yeah, I really get into a lot of trouble with this from the vendors. And it's funny because I'll walk the show and they're like, oh, yeah, somebody took your class, Mercedes. They wouldn't give me the credit card. Yeah, I don't go to a restaurant and give them my credit card and then eat the food. It doesn't work that way. So, and you'll be surprised also. And this is why I want you to write your own orders, because when you let the vendors write the order, they put the style number because that's what's important to them, and the price with a very gibberish description. You want to be, I can't tell you, again, how many times there's a discrepancy in a size, like they sent me smalls and I only wanted larges, or in a price, or, on a delivery date. That's why I check every invoice to the order, and then I send, and I want to stress this too, I don't think I did before. I send my own credit card authorization form because it very clearly states you may never charge my credit card again without my written authorization, and you have to ship within 2 days of charging my credit card. Because it takes literally 30 seconds for them to charge your credit card, it takes you 30 days to get your money back. And especially when you're starting a new business, that cash flow, that 30 days is everything. So you have to stay in control of all of your paperwork. And yes, you will be paying on a credit card, but not at the show. Because remember, why are they asking you for a credit card if you're not confirming the order at the show? You're confirming after the show.
All right, we have a question from a buyer who is primarily going to shop Curve, the lingerie show, but is looking for some small add-on items. Where would you suggest to start?
Oh my, there's so many accessories throughout the shows with lingerie. So even if you were to walk some of the like activewear, or if you were to walk the Fame show, there's some really nice bag companies. scarf companies that can be used as sarongs. There's even some of the cosmetic people that have sun protection. There's so many great little things that add on, like impulse buys that have nice margins that to give you like one small area would really not do you any justice. It is a very comfortable size show that in 2 days you could definitely do the whole show comfortably at a nice pace and get, buy what you need to buy.
Great, thank you so much, Mercedes. We have had a few questions come in regarding the presentation and if it will be available. We will have the full recording and the presentation available sent after today. We also have had a few questions regarding the calendar for UBM Fashion. That is also on the slides here. We have listed out different categories that you will find at all marketplaces. We actually have had a few more questions come in, so I'm going to try and get to those now. One, going back to the credit card information, where and whom are you obtaining your credit card authorization form from, or are you creating it yourself?
I create it myself. So the basic things that you do, your name, your address, your billing number, the expiration date, the CV number, and then just my little disclosure gets put on the form. So it's pretty easy to do on any like Word form item.
And continuing on, there is a question about if you're able to take order forms and handwrite your order live at the show, or do you rewrite them back in the office a week later?
Oh, it's really, so the times are really changing. So if we go back to like the Fame show, and a lot of the Korean brands that are represented, they have some new technology where they scan all the barcodes of the products that you're interested in with the minimum pre-packs, or if you wanted to add on, you can, like a double pre-pack, triple pre-packs. And the nice thing is that they'll even print you your order notes with a picture. So in that case, I'm not going to handwrite my orders because it's just a waste of time, and I'll let them print me notes, not an order, notes that then I'll confirm when I get back. But I do, and it's funny because, after all of these years of buying, every once in a while somebody will still say to me, well, I have to write the order on my form. And I'm like, well, you have your job to do and I have my job to do. Like, my job is to write my order on my own form. And again, don't stress out. If you're a new store and you don't have your own order forms, it's totally fine. What you might want to do is just write it on the vendor's order form, but just really circle, like, hold for confirmation, these are order notes, and make it big and obnoxious because people forget, they have amnesia, they misplace it, they put it in the order pile, they process it, and all of those kind of fun things. So you just want to go back, and then you might want to do your order confirmation as a PO in your POS system.
All right, the next question, can you purchase several items, meaning wholesale items, and for them to be sent in the same week or days?
Yes, absolutely. So, but I'm assuming, of course, that you're buying from the same vendor. So if it's from the same vendor and they have multiple deliveries, you can consolidate it by delivery. It's actually what I prefer you to do, giving them the window of opportunity when to ship, but then to be very, very specific, I would also put ship as one shipment and no back orders. So that means that they can't ship you like the rest of the stuff. Maybe they didn't have all the sizes at a later date. So you want to just be able to do that. The other thing I do too, if I'm doing it as, how can I say, like if I do it as outfits, like related separates, that you'll find a lot of those brands at Moda. If I'm doing them as related separates, I will bracket them. Like I like the shirt to go with this top and this skirt to go with this top, and I'll bracket them. And if they have to drop one of the styles, immediately I know maybe I should drop the bottom too, because I was going to coordinate it and sell it and merchandise it as a set in my store.
All right, can you explain what a cancel date is?
Sure. So your order forms are actual legal forms, right? They're contracts. A cancel date is the last possible date that a vendor can ship you goods without you legally having the right to cancel it. So let's say I wanted Valentine's Day goods and I wanted them to come in at the end of January. But now it's, February the 14th and they ship me the goods. If I didn't have a cancel date, I wouldn't have any recourse in saying, I don't want this order, you have to take it back. But since I do have a cancel date and they didn't ship it on time, I have the right to cancel it. So there's also, just to like really throw you for a loop, there's another one called X Factory. So especially if we're working with overseas, because we have to give them time to ship it to us, X Factory means that that's the cancel date is actually the day that it left and not the day that you received the goods.
Okay, the next one is, I'm launching my online boutique in December 2018. What advice do you have for someone attending a fashion trade show for the first time? And also, do you think it would be comfortable to wear a thick-heeled boot, or should she wear a flat shoe or sneaker?
Okay, I'll answer the easy question first. Every shoe that you wear is going to be uncomfortable. It starts comfortable and it's going to end up uncomfortable. So my trick is always to bring a different pair of shoes. So if I start out with the boot, I might go to the flat, or if I start with the flat, I'll change to the heel, because it does make a difference on the foot. It really does. So I am just going to be very blunt. I'm sorry I don't know you, but you could reach out to me later if you like. Opening an online store in December is probably one of the worst things that you could possibly do. It is not a good idea, just the fact that it's online, which if you watch some of my old videos, you'll see that it is not a feasible thing. And it's and the other part of that is December for online, unless you have a massive following of people and they know you from, I don't know, something else, that date is the date that everybody is bargain hunting and they want free shipping and free returns and free everything. And I don't think that you could possibly be profitable and competitive at the same time.
The next question, if we have a good budget, know what we are looking for, and are offered some sort of promo for placing an order at the show, is there any downside to doing that?
No, absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked that question, because there are moments of opportunity, like a closeout or really discounted or an opportunity that comes up. If that's the only case where I don't write hold for confirmation. And if they ask me for my credit card at that moment, I still don't give it to them at the show, but I make sure that I call corporate and I give it to them directly. I can't not tell you how much like credit card fraud goes on, especially with there's like loose numbers on pieces of paper. So I do take advantage of it and I do write the order at that moment. And even if I am over budget, if it's a really good buy, I make an exception to that rule always.
Okay, is there a standard order and shipping date for seasonal products? Please explain when seasonal products should be ordered. An example, order for when, and when would they expect to request shipping?
So that's an interesting question. When we talk about seasonal, we mean like very specific items like prom dresses for prom, or Valentine's Day gifts, or Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, right? Halloween items. So as a rule of thumb, I like them to be on the floor 6 weeks before I actually have to sell them. So our Valentine things have probably been on the floor since January the 10th, but they're not going to sell until next week, which is kind of ironic, right? But you want the consumer to know that you have it, they want to see it, they want to compare, they want to do all kinds of stuff before they actually commit to a seasonal item. As far as seasons, like spring, summer, winter, fall, I like to have a turnover of every 4 to 6 weeks. There's fresh merchandise coming in. So that's how I like to sequence my orders, depending on the availability from the vendor. Obviously, if the vendor's not ready to ship you, you can't have something on that date. That's why you need to know what the start date is. And then I sequence them so there's always fresh merchandise coming into the store during season. I mean, it used to be, and I remember I started when buyers would buy like 3 seasons. They would buy spring, summer, and it would all come together, and it would sit in the store or in the store warehouse or the back office for 3 months, not making money and costing you money. And then we would buy holiday. So now, because of the shipping, because of the logistics, because of the availability of so many nice brands, you can pace yourself and have a new flow of merchandise, practically every couple of days if you wanted to.
All right, another good question has come in. I'm opening my boutique in April. Will I be able to buy for the spring season?
Okay, it's April is, so, and again, I'm really sorry that I can't be more specific, but I just want to give you a general idea. The best selling spring months is March, April, and May. So if you're opening in the middle of that, it makes it really tough for you to pick up the momentum, because once you get into June and July, it slows down. July is absolutely dead unless you have a store in a resort area. So if you're not absolutely 100% sure that your launch date is going to be April 1st, you're really cutting it tight. And my advice would be to just buy at-once goods that are discounted already that you could put at full price, because when you have to go into sale mode in June and July, you have enough margin where you haven't lost all of your investment. So it really is kind of a tricky numbers game that you're going to be playing with, but you're actually opening up late in the season if you're not in a resort area.
Great.
And, you know, and if I had to pick, I just want to evaluate one tiny more thing. A lot of people feel like, oh, I want to open up in the fall for like holiday, right? But it's not the best time to open. I like opening like in February, which is a dreadful retail month. But I like opening the store, you know, get my feet wet, get everything in operations, because March, April, May, June are fabulous months. You have spring break, you have Easter, you have Passover, you have Mother's Day, you have graduations, you have weddings, you have all of these opportunities to sell things, as opposed to like fall, which you have back to school. So if they have big tuitions, nobody's buying anything. October is like a weird month because it's not cold, it's not hot, it's not winter, it's not summer, it's not holiday. November is an excellent month, and then I find that December for boutiques can be very tricky because people are buying presents. So if you don't have a good return policy, if you don't have gift items, if you don't have opening price point items where they're not thinking about the price too much, they're shopping at the majors and at the discounters. So it's not as flexible the fall as it is to the spring, but you do have to open before that April market. And this year, Easter is actually at the end of March, so you're going to be missing that whole selling cycle too.
Great, thank you so much, Mercedes. If you do have any additional questions about the show, or if you're a new store and need assistance, or if you simply want some suggestions on which brands to meet this February, you can contact our UBM Fashion Retail Engagement team. Celeste and the team will be at the show in February. Look out for the retail concierge desk and make sure you say hello and meet them. We would like to thank Mercedes one last time. If you would like to connect with her or find out more about global purchasing companies, the contact information is shared here and will be included in the slides you receive via email. Thank you again for attending the webinar. If you have not registered for the show, please head over to ubmfashion.com and get registered. We look forward to seeing you in less than 3 weeks in New York City.
Have a great show, everyone, and thank you for your time.